Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to be with you this morning. Thank you. Yeah, that song always, since I was young, that song has just always just hit me here. Take a minute. You know, I told my husband when I moved here with him in 2003 that I'm okay moving here, but if the White House calls. Somehow it was non-negotiable that something different may happen. And since I was 14, I've always had this dream, and not just a dream, but this expectation that I would work in the White House. I grew up around Capitol Hill and the Supreme Court and the White House, and ultimately that's where I was going to be. And around that time, I'd also read Profiles in Courage. And if there's any political science geeks in here like me, you will have read this book. And it is written by John F. Kennedy, and it is about people, and mostly men actually, but taking their step in terms of their political and policy career and making that choice to step forward and risk themselves and step into their roles. And I wanted to be that, and part of that was being in the White House and being able to work and make those dreams happen and create those opportunities. So I told Chip in no uncertain terms, I'm good with Greensboro, but if the White House calls, we're moving. That's true. Now, the one thing I will point out to all of you that have been coming here the past several weeks, that what we've been talking about over the past few weeks is how problems present themselves with gifts. And I'm still here. And my story is about a problem that I had to confront, and the growing that happened in that process. When I came to Greensboro 9 years ago at that time, there was a number of things that we've had the opportunity to do. Over that time, Chip and I got married, we bought a house. We've done quite a bit in our career. Chip had worked on public policy at the state and made changes at the state level that would affect public employees' lives, as well as public safety officer lives. I had the opportunity, the fortune, to work on a national congressional campaign. I also worked to raise $60 million from the state to develop the Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering. And that school is down on Lee Street, and that is an exciting place. So we had put down our roots, and we had done a lot for this community, and we had come to grow and love this community. And we also had the opportunity to go to the city. And I found myself working for the city of Greensboro. And actually I found myself as interim city manager. So you can see those 9 years had quite a bit going on. And I had the fortune of developing friendships and relationships. I had my reputation. I had the work that I'd done with the city council and the community. I knew the city of Greensboro, and I knew that the people who were there were passionate and committed to this community, and I had an opportunity to work with those individuals. So I thought I was a strong candidate for the role of city manager. And the job itself is nothing to scoff at. Ultimately, it's a $400 million budget that I have a chance to manage with the help of Mary. Thank you very much, Mary. And 2,800 employees. So it was pretty exciting. So while the White House had not come calling, things were looking very good. Well, then I do get a call. And the call is from a former boss of mine who is actually a presidential appointee. And he has been a trusted advisor of the president and is working on some very important things at the state level. And he called and he said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "Well, you know, we had kept in touch over this time, so he knew about the appointment." And he said, "Well, do you think you like it? Are you going to do that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I'm going to apply for the position. I think there's something here." He said, "Oh, because here's what I was thinking." And so he went on to talk to me about the opportunity to serve as a presidential appointee. And this was that moment where I was getting the call. And this was the moment, ladies and gentlemen, we had a conflict. Because we had done all those things that I talked about, and in fact, we could leave Greensboro at this moment and feel good about the things that we've achieved and start on this other path that for a long time had come to a significant place in my life, more than I realized until that moment. This is a point where I should share with you a little bit more about myself. And some of you may know this, and I'm not sure. Some of you may not and may be surprised. But in fact, in part of our lives, we grew up pretty poor. And we grew up in Anacostia in Washington, D.C. And that's Southeast Washington, and not many people make it over to that part of D.C. when you're there. But it is the inner city. It is a part of the city that many people don't know exists. It's where people had struggled to maintain family, struggled to maintain home. And it was specifically the 80s. So it was also impacted by the crack cocaine epidemic and people making bad choices that was not about their family, about themselves even as individuals, but dealing with addiction and trying to overcome and trying to find a way to survive to the next day. For me, I was fortunate. I had a mother who worked very hard. Part of the time, I remember her cleaning floors in buildings across town to make ends meet and to take care of me and my brothers who were sometimes there, sometimes a cousin, sometimes a friend, but making a way in a home for all of us. Being able to send me to Catholic school in the same area of D.C. that created a haven for me at which the nuns invited me in. It gave me an opportunity to serve and be of service and to find and to know that people cared and loved me. My brothers made sure I got to school every day and on time, regardless of what was going on in their lives or around us. My mother kept encouraging us that we could have what we wanted. And in fact, I watched my mother go through a public policy program, as I would come to understand it, that gave her the opportunity to train as a banker, well, in banking, really as a teller, a bank teller. For me, she was a banker. And to get her GED at the same time. And that was a true reflection of what public policy is meant to be. It is a true reflection of where I knew I wanted my career to go. That when I grew up, I was going to create similar opportunities for people to create better lives for themselves and their families and their communities. And I knew that I could do that. My career has been a reflection of that. I've worked in Capitol Hill. I've worked for the mayor of one of the largest cities in D.C. I've worked for other members of Congress. I've come to gain a knowing and a place of honor in terms of being proud of where I've come from and what I've achieved. And also having people know that I can call up today and say, oh yeah, if you want to do this, come on board. They're happy to have me, and I'm proud of what I've achieved in that sense. And the White House had become, as I said, the pinnacle of that. That was the icing on the cake. It was the thank you for all of the sacrifice and opportunities that people had given me along the way. It was going to be the representation of me achieving the things that I thought that I was on the path to achieve. And so at that moment of conflict, it was a greater conflict than do I choose this job or that job. It was more a conflict of, am I going to choose the wrong thing? In the fear of choosing the wrong thing. And on the other side, in Greensboro, like I said, I had quite an opportunity to have a career here and a lot of things that I was a part of. And ultimately, I was also going to have a challenge because I hadn't worked as a city manager in other cities, and those I was competing against would have. And while I was recognized by many in this community, I was still going to be challenged. Am I ready to do this job? And the reality is I look much younger than I am, so there's always that too. Which is not a bad thing. I just turned 39 last week, and I'm pretty happy about that. And so I was very unsettled, and I had this choice of working with the first African-American president of the United States and making a difference in some way. I don't know how that was going to end up, but I knew that this world and this country was never going to be the same again, and I could be a part of that. And at the same time, I had what I had built here, and not just in my career, but it was also building a family and a home and commitment to people. It was also the choice to be a wife and a mother, because while it would still be those things in DC, they come in very different packages there. Very different packages. And here I would have to immerse in all of those things and embrace all of those parts of me. And ironically, I figured out that the choice to go to DC was actually the easier choice. It would be easier to work for the president than to stay in Greensboro, North Carolina. How about that? I realized my gift at this point, that my career had been about building communities, and I had a chance to build my community. I also had a chance to be challenged and to face risk head on. And I had to make a choice. And I didn't want to stay here in Greensboro and be resentful. I didn't want to resent my husband and my child in the place that I was in. If I was going to be here, I needed to be here fully and to love it and be a part of it. So I went quiet. And I did things that we have learned here in Unity. And I meditated and I sought out prayer. And I was reminded about a year prior of going through a life and transitions course. And I had the Finding Yourself in Transition, Robert Broom from it. So many of you have been through this course. And I saw places that I had underlined a few things. The first place I came to was something I had written down. And it says, be patient with the process, the journey, and trust it. Desire of my heart is what God wants for me. Vision you have for yourself will be reality. Don't worship the golden calf. God is enough. I went through this class at a time where I was feeling some level of anxiety and uncertainty, and I wasn't sure where it was coming from. And I had the opportunity to be a part of this course, but I didn't know at the time what it meant. So what is it that my heart desired? Another section, quote from Stephen Levine. And letting go of who we imagine ourselves to be, letting go of our thinking, our attempt to control the world, we come upon our natural being, which has been waiting patiently for all of these years. So, that was saying to me that maybe all I thought I knew about myself wasn't exactly what I knew about myself. But who am I to think that I can step into this role as city manager of such an important city in the state of North Carolina? Who am I? The Lord says I am who I am. And can I be successful? When we are identified solely with the personal self, the ego, we feel inadequate to the task of transformation. As we cultivate our awareness of the I am and learn to surrender to this transpersonal self, we realize that our only limitations are those that are self-imposed. So my risk and my timing was really about my fear of the success, and my fear of stepping into my true nature. my fear of embracing all of those things, motherhood, wife, community leader, and what that meant. It was necessary for me to formulate my desire and surrender to the results. And so I felt that it was time for me that I step into this path. I chose the path of staying on the road of being the city manager of Greensboro. I stepped away from the path of going to the White House. Not that it's not still on my path. It's just not for today. And it's a matter of choosing the roads at the right time. So here I'm closer to shaping communities and doing the things that I wanted to do. In fact, probably having a better experience and a better knowledge coming out of this than I would have going to the White House. And I have a chance to be a part of something bigger and to create new opportunities. And the irony is that since I've been here, I've met the president 4 times. I've been to the White House. I met the first one. So while I get to sometimes get yelled at city council meetings, it is all very much worth it. In conclusion, I know my journey is not complete. I continue to listen to my inner soul. And as we move into the silence this morning, I ask you to join me and go within. Is there something that you've been avoiding? Are you honoring your inner guidance? Will you surrender and have the courage to take the next step? I don't know what my next step is, but I know that there's more to come. Is that next step true peace, true happiness? As long as you're willing to confront what is really you, it will always be. And I'll leave you with this last stanza from Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Namaste.